Your thoughts and your food both affect your skin.
Negative thoughts, aka thoughts,
Yes.
surface right on your skin for everyone to see.
Yes.
Maria is a holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Kuma skincare brand. Maria began her journey in her 20s while battling her own health problems, discovering transformative power of food as medicine. Since then, she has become a renowned expert in treating acne naturally and improving overall health through proper nutrition. Maria has helped thousands worldwide, and her expertise has been featured in major outlets like Vogue and Good Morning America.
I think in the Western culture, there's this kind of mindset of a pill for every ill. So every little thing, symptom that you have, there's a different pill for that thing. When you allow birth to unfold naturally, your body is basically making the drugs to keep you going throughout it, right? You're making it in your body. It's crossing the blood-brain barrier, so you're getting the benefits, right? You're getting the pain relief. And then when you actually give birth, it's like you're the highest high you've ever been on in your life.
Maria, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
I want to introduce you to our audience so that they know who is the amazing person here today. So Maria is a holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Kuma skincare brand. Maria began her journey in her 20s while battling her own health problems, discovering transformative power of food as medicine. Since then, she has become a renowned expert in treating acne naturally and improving overall health through proper nutrition. Maria has helped thousands worldwide, and her expertise has been featured in major outlets like Vogue and Good Morning America. Maria, once again, I'm so glad that you're here and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I guess let's get straight in it. And can you explain to us what is the connection between our food and the food that we eat and our skin, our beauty, our glow, our internal and external, let's say, health?
It's all connected. So I was, my mind was blown once I figured this out, because for the longest time I thought skin issues were just topical. And that's what we're taught. We're taught, when you have a skin problem, go buy a cream, a lotion, put something on topically. If it gets really bad or it doesn't go away, then maybe go to the dermatologist and they'll prescribe some medications. But that's kind of the extent of it. But in struggling with acne myself for almost 5 years, I realized none of that stuff worked for me. And it wasn't until I changed my diet that my skin actually cleared up. And this was like a light bulb moment. And the more research I did, the more I realized there is actually a lot of data and science to show a connection between what we eat and the health of our skin, and even our gut health, like the state of our gut microbiome and the health of our skin. So the more I learned, the more fascinated I became, and there is a huge connection. So there's something we now call the gut-brain-skin connection, which I'm sure your listeners, you may have heard of. And what this refers to is the fact that these three organs are intricately connected. So they kind of
Gut, brain, skin.
Gut, brain, skin, yeah. So all three of these organs, they're in constant communication back and forth. And so what happens in one affects the others. So this is why stressful thoughts can actually break you out, right? I'm sure, maybe when you're in university or something, people tend to break out around exam time, and it's not
the worst time.
Yeah, the worst time. Or before a big presentation or something important in your life. And it's not, random. There's a reason. And so what we know now is that stressful thoughts can actually disrupt your gut microbiome. And this disruption creates inflammation in the body, which shows up as inflammation of the skin. And so, it's really fascinating. But long story short, your thoughts and your food both affect your skin.
That is crazy. Literally, you recapped it perfectly, because I was going to say, are you literally telling me negative thoughts, aka thoughts,
Yes.
surface right on your skin for everyone to see?
Yes.
Crazy.
Yes.
Makes sense though. I had heard about gut-brain connection, but I hadn't actually heard about gut-brain-skin connection. So this is, just a bigger reminder, I guess, for everyone to put the, checking your mindset and your psyche health as a priority, and just constantly working on that, because if you're not equipped to deal with your own mind on a daily basis effectively and in a, positive and productive way, then this is just one of the things that's going to end.
For sure. And I've been doing this for a long time now, and food is so important. Like, I'm so passionate about food. Food makes such a huge difference in our skin, our mood, our immunity, our overall health, everything. But one thing that I've learned over the years is that your mental health is stronger. So even you can eat the healthiest diet and work out and you do your cold plunge and do this and that. But if your mental health is not in a good place and you're stressed or you're anxious or you have negative thoughts, you're not going to be your healthiest self. You're going to have issues because our mind is so powerful, and it really, again, it affects our gut, it affects our immunity, it affects our overall health.
Wow, this is very powerful. So for somebody that's listening, they're like, okay, I'm clearly going to take more attention now into working on my mindset. What else can they do? I guess food or some supplements? Or
Yeah, so food is really important. So what we know with acne in particular, and any other sort of inflammatory skin condition, so like a psoriasis or eczema, rosacea, inflammation is at the root. And so our diet and lifestyle choices play a huge role in our inflammation levels in our body. So food, because most of us are eating 3 times a day, sometimes more, we have a lot of control over that. And that's why it's one of the most important levers we have over inflammation. So certain foods, like sugar, for example, and sodas, all these things are going to increase the inflammation in our body, whereas our vegetables, our fruit, our wild salmon, our healthy whole foods, those help to reduce inflammation in our body. So we definitely want to eat an anti-inflammatory diet. And again, not just for our skin, but for our mood, for our energy, for our immunity, our overall health.
So what happens to the body when it's inflamed?
Chronic illness and disease.
Wow.
We know there's so many of these common chronic illnesses and diseases that we have are all stemming from inflammation. And where is the inflammation coming from? It's coming from our gut. So how does it get to the gut? One, those stressful thoughts that can create inflammation in the gut. But secondly, foods that are pro-inflammatory. Those can also create inflammation.
Okay, everything is now kind of being connected in my mind. So you said inflammation is created in the gut. So it's not because I've heard this, these phrases about inflamed muscles and things like that. That's not correct. It's inflammation is in...
Well, you could have inflammation anywhere. You could have localized inflammation. So, if you get an injury or something like that, you can have localized inflammation. But when we're talking about chronic inflammation, which is more that systemic or that body-wide inflammation, that's typically stemming from the gut.
I see. And so we get that through our negative thoughts and through our mind, as well as the body by food.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so talk to us. Proactive decisions that will decrease that inflammation.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things we can do. Definitely food-wise. Okay, so eating more anti-inflammatory foods. So your dark leafy greens, your rainbow of vegetables, making sure you're eating enough omega-3 rich foods. So that's like your wild salmon, anchovies, sardines, those oily fish. You can also find it in flax and chia seed and some plant-based foods. We want to make sure that we're eating enough protein. We're keeping our blood sugar stable. This is another really important one. And sometimes people will be like, oh, but I eat so healthy and, I don't know why I have this health problem or that health problem. But if you actually look at what they're eating a lot of high carbohydrate foods, even though they're healthy, like quote unquote healthy foods. If you're not eating enough protein or you're not keeping your blood sugar stable, this can lead to problems with our hormones, with insulin, with weight gain, with acne, all the things. So keeping your blood sugar stable is really important also for keeping your inflammation levels in check.
And we do that by increasing the protein or by decreasing the carbs?
Both. I mean, both can be helpful.
There's also fiber. Someone could just eat
fiber.
veg only.
Yeah, but so even like, for example, fruit. Fruit is very healthy. Love fruit. It's amazing. But, if you have, like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if you're like, I'm going to eat a cup of pineapple, that is going to spike your blood sugar. And it's not that you never want your blood sugar to spike. But if you were to eat a handful of nuts, let's say, which has some fat and protein in it, and then you had the pineapple, you're going to get a smaller rise in glucose versus if you just ate it on its own. So the point being is that if you're eating like naked carbs, in the sense that you're just eating the carbohydrate foods, even though they're good foods, like an oatmeal or a whole grain or beans or something like that, chickpeas, it could still spike your blood sugar. And like if you're just getting a lot of spikes all day long, that's not good. So you can eat these foods, but you want to pair them with fiber, pair them with protein, so that they're, your blood sugar is staying more stable. So that is one like tip kind of in the nutrition world, is no naked carbs. So when you want to have carbs, dress them up with protein, fat, and fiber.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's solid advice. I had heard this, I think, from the glucose goddess, where she was saying the order. So you start with the fiber, and then
then the protein and fat,
and
then the carbs. So that's why, like, sweet things. If you want to have sweet things, go for it, but have it as a dessert, not as a snack. So once you've finished your meal, you've got your fiber, you've got your protein, you've got your healthy fat. Then
chances are you won't even want it.
That's true. That's actually true.
Tricked ya. All right. And what do you think? Is there any sort of connection between what we eat and the allergies? Because I keep seeing more and more people all of a sudden have intolerances, allergies. I mean, that's the number one question that I ask in every single restaurant right now, even though I can remember even 5 years ago it wasn't the case. So what's happening?
Well, I think what's happening so there's a difference between allergies and food sensitivities, and I would say both are on the rise. An allergy is a bit more serious compared to a food sensitivity, but I think what's happening is our guts are becoming so disrupted. So I'm sure you've heard of something called leaky gut. Yes. So certain foods can cause leaky gut, stressful thoughts can cause leaky gut, and what that means is that the cells that line our intestines, they're becoming more permeable. So typically, we really just want the nutrients going into our bloodstream, but when we have leaky gut, other things that are in our gut can leak out into our bloodstream that are not supposed to be there. Different, particles and toxins, and so when that happens, our immune system mounts a response, and that response is what creates the inflammation and what creates the reaction to the food. So oftentimes people will do these food sensitivity tests, and it'll come back and like everything is like, you have a sensitivity to this. And it's likely due to the fact that their gut barrier is compromised. And so you're becoming reactive, particularly to the foods that you eat often. But if you were to take a few months, like say 3 to 6 months, and really work on repairing your gut, health, like restoring your gut barrier, restoring your gut microbiome, you'll likely find that you can then tolerate those foods again.
So now asking for people that I guess have experienced the symptoms of leaky gut, that experience some sort of discomfort with their gut. What is the time frame, as you said? First of all, can you repair it just by, let's say, working on your mindset and working on your diet and trying to, as much as possible, include non-acidic, alkaline foods and non-inflammatory foods? How long will that take? So
it really depends, right? It's always case by case, because everyone's different in terms of like the severity of it and how long it's been going on, their own personal biochemistry and history and everything. So I can't give like an exact, but like a range. I mean, I'll say it probably won't take as long as you think. Like it depends. If it's just sort of a basic sort of low level, again, 3 to 6 months, you should be golden. If you're really working on repairing it through, like let's say there's certain foods that are really good for the gut lining. So bone broth, for example, like a grass-fed bone broth is really healing. Probiotics and fermented foods are really beneficial for improving the gut microbiome, which again is going to help with the gut lining as well. Licorice tea, right? There's so many things that we can do if we add those in. Add in the good foods. We remove the foods that are problematic and causing some issues, and we work on our mindset and calming and reducing our stress. So again, that we're not poking holes in there and kind of undoing the healthy things that we're eating. It could take like 3 to 6 months.
You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing that once more, this is just a reminder for everyone, including myself, that this whole I'll take a pill and I'll fix it mentality it just doesn't work. So you might get rid of a symptom on a short period of time, but you certainly can just pop a pill and fix issues that have been caused by yourself and your lifestyle and your decisions over an X amount of time. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. And that's the thing, if you've had issues for several years, you can't expect it to go away overnight. And exactly what you said. I think in the Western culture, there's this kind of mindset of a pill for every ill. So every little thing, symptom that you have, there's a different pill for that thing. But all these things, most of these things have side effects, number one, or it will just mask the problem without going to the root of what the issue is. And a lot of times, if you have multiple things going on, I don't know, maybe PMS cramps, and you have headaches, and you have acne, and you have this and that, it can all be coming from the same root, but you're addressing each one separately, and you're kind of just putting a Band-Aid on without going to the root cause. So I do think it is really important that I always say, whenever we have ailments, whatever they are, they're communication from our body. So we need to be a detective, and we need to, start asking questions and why is this happening?
Yeah.
Why are my hormones imbalanced? Because it's not going to just happen just because. Why am I getting cramps? Why am I getting headaches? Why am I getting acne? And the more you dig, you'll likely find that there's diet and lifestyle factors at play that are contributing to the issue. And if you can address those and get to the root of the issue, you'll find that you've solved not just that one, like the acne, for example, but all the other issues as well.
Yeah, this is again another reminder that we are a whole connected system, and that goes both on, let's say, micro level of our own organism. So you can't take one organ and extrapolate it completely outside of the context of the others.
Right.
And so there's the skin, there's the brain, is the gut, everything's beautifully connected, and playing on this beautiful or not very beautiful symphony, depending on where we're at. And so it's really a matter for us all to kind of check in and take a holistic approach to our health, and look at it from a macro level. So how's the lifestyle? How's the diet? How's the sleep? How's the exercise? And I'm a person that I'm going to all the biohacking events. I'm fascinated by this. I'm always wanting to improve, even by a little bit, whatever I can improve, which hopefully is everything, right? But equally, I'm also very, very aware that there are some people out there that maybe haven't gone on the path of figuring out and fixing the main pillars of your well-being, which is, the sleep, the diet, the exercise, the non-toxins, detoxification of your body and your environment. And they're kind of trying to find these super pills, or these super biohacking solutions. Whereas the reality is that, 90% of your health is going to be fixing those pillars and figuring out those pillars of well-being, which are the most basic and cheap things. And then it's the last couple of percent, you can just optimize it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think good sleep, keeping your mental health in a good state, good food, getting nature time, sunshine, this will solve so many issues. And then there might be a little extra to do, but if you just start there, you'll already start to see a huge difference.
I love that. Talking about those last percent. So probiotics, that's something that you're really passionate about and an expert on. Can you talk to us, what are probiotics, why do we need them, and how do we consume them?
Sure. Probiotics are good bacteria that reside in our guts. We also have good bacteria and probiotics on our skin and our oral microbiome, right? So they're not just in the gut. And they play a huge role in our health. Actually, a couple years ago, that I think it was a Time article came out, how the human body is mostly bacterial cells versus human cells.
Wow.
And so they are really integral to our well-being. And again, I think this sort of Western mindset is there's good bacteria and bad bacteria, and we just need to kill the bad bacteria. And it's this very kind of warlike thing mindset, whereas there's so many commensal or good bacteria, and they're really just so integral to how everything in our body operates. And so we need to make sure that we have plenty of these good bacteria in our gut, in our body, and they help with everything. They help with digestion, they help with our immune system, they help with our mood. There's some research that people who lack certain bacteria in their gut are more likely to have, mental health issues. We know that people who lack lactobacillus and bifidobacteria tend to be more prone to acne, psoriasis, rosacea, all these skin issues. And so the bacteria in our gut in particular just play such a huge role in our overall health. So where do we get them? We can get them from fermented foods. So that's things like sauerkraut, kimchi, traditionally fermented pickles, kefir, right? So it almost seems like every culture has some version of fermented food historically. Again, in the West, I feel like we've kind of lost that. Like the Western palate doesn't have such a taste for fermented foods, and they're not included so routinely, except for maybe like sauerkraut on a hot dog. but that's, people are not including them regularly. So ideally we'd be eating fermented foods on a very regular, if not daily basis to get those good bacteria. And you can also get them then from supplements. And so what I like about probiotic supplements is that you know exactly what strains you're getting, because now we have a lot of research on like which strains are good for different things. And so if you have a specific issue that you're trying to work on, or if you've done a stool test, let's say, and you know you're low in something, then you can take a probiotic to replenish that particular bacteria. And I think that modern life is sort of designed to deplete our good bacteria. The stress, like I said, stress can deplete those good bacteria. Certain medications, certain foods, again, the sugary foods. And so, it's really important that we're constantly replenishing those good bacteria.
Wow. So much to do. Every time I have a conversation, I'm like, I need to implement about 50 new things into my life. But it's repetition. Repetition is the mother of all learning, right? So I mean, this is why we're having these conversations. So everyone kind of knows they should be eating healthier, but this is your reminder. So with probiotics, I guess my question is, I've heard that there's sometimes difficulty with the absorption, them surviving the
stomach acid.
Exactly that. And so where does that fall into everything? And I also heard that there's pre and postbiotics. So
yes. Okay, so probiotics, what you're talking about in terms of like the stomach acid. So commercial probiotics, you'll either see that they're just like a probiotic, or you'll see that it's in a delayed release capsule. So the ones that are not in a delayed release capsule, there could potentially be a higher chance of it basically being rendered ineffective in your stomach acid, because it's a very acidic environment, so it won't survive into your gut, into your intestines, where the probiotics are needed most. And so over the years, there have been a lot of advancements in probiotic technology. So like for example, having the delayed release capsule, that helps it bypass the stomach acid, so more of the probiotics make it to your gut alive. Even the way that they dry, and produce the probiotics, some of them are going to be more acid and heat resistant. That's why you'll also see there's shelf-stable probiotics now and refrigerated probiotics. So if a probiotic has to be refrigerated, it's likely a bit more delicate, so perhaps less likely to survive an acidic or hostile environment inside your body, whereas the shelf-stable ones, they are able to withstand, higher temperatures and survive. So, they're more likely to make it to your intestines. So that's that.
So side question.
Yes.
So how do people choose? Because there's a million things. So the liquids, the pills.
So I think when choosing a probiotic, first thing is you want to figure out what is your intention behind taking it. Is it solely gut health, or is it, immune health? Is it skin health? Is it mood health? And then based on that, then I would choose the strains and look for the strains that are going to afford you that specific benefit that you're looking for. Then next, you want to look for probiotics that are using clinically validated strains. So those are the ones that have the letters at the end, like L-acidophilus LA14, for example. And what that shows, the ones that are clinically validated, they're going to have actual data, like test data, to suggest that, okay, this probiotic is beneficial for this concern. And so that can give you a little bit more assurance versus a generic version of the strain, which we don't know, how hardy it is, like, or how helpful it could potentially be. So that would be second. And then third, you want ideally a delayed release, because that's going to help ensure that, the probiotics get to where they need. And I would say those are probably the top three things. You want something that's convenient. I think shelf stable is definitely more convenient, because I know if something's in my refrigerator, I forget to take it.
Absolutely.
So those would be kind of the main criteria.
And what are postbiotics?
So postbiotics, so when you consume, and you ask for prebiotics as well, So probiotics are the good bacteria. Prebiotics are food for the good bacteria. So they kind of are like the fertilizer that help your probiotics proliferate in your gut. And then when you consume probiotics and prebiotics, they make something called postbiotics. It's like the byproduct of the probiotics interacting with the prebiotics. And this is where the benefits of probiotics come, right? These are like the anti-inflammatory benefits and like the health promoting benefits are coming from the interaction between the probiotics and the prebiotics, which are the postbiotics. So you can now there are postbiotic supplements, but I would say it's probably best to eat the probiotics and the prebiotic rich foods, right? Prebiotics come from fiber. So, certain vegetables, fruits. And so it would be better I'm a fan of going natural, going the traditional way, and allowing your body to create the postbiotics.
Love that. So we should take the probiotic supplements paired with prebiotic fibrous foods, and we'll be golden.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Just checking. I just literally went on another shopping spree for new supplements, new detoxifications, and I'll let you know how that goes. But actually, on detoxification, parasites.
Yeah. People have them.
Can you share something on that if that's something that you're familiar
So
with?
I've had a parasite before, and it's not fun.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, they're more common than people realize. They're not always tested for. Like, I remember I had gotten one, this was many years ago, and I was very sick and kept going to the doctor, and they're like, I don't know. And then someone's like, oh, you should get tested for parasites.
What were your symptoms?
It was coming out both ends,
Wow.
Throwing up, diarrhea, like for an extended period. And I think it came from eating like takeout, to be honest. And somebody didn't wash their hands, I guess, before they prepared my food. But yeah, so I got tested and I had a parasite. And so I actually tried initially, kind of the conventional treatments for that, which it would go away for a little while, but then it would come back within like a month or two. And then the thing that, for my particular parasite that I had, I did a panchakarma, which is like an Indian or Ayurvedic sort of detoxification treatment, like over the course of a week or so. And that actually finally cleared it out of my system. And I was so thankful for that.
And what happens in that panchakarma?
So you have a very bland diet of something called khichdi, which is like lentils and rice and different spices and things. And there's a lot of oil involved. And at some point, like, I guess the main thing is that you drink castor oil and it just kind of flushes everything out. And you do that for a few days.
Kind of drown the parasites.
Yeah. And it got it out. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's very unpleasant, though, I will tell you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not fun to do, but it worked.
I mean, I only raise this because it keeps surfacing from different groups, different people, different sources, and I just realized that each ancient culture has their own parasitation traditions and that they perform regularly. It's a part of their, I don't know if annual or monthly health routines. But again, this is something that in the Western culture we've completely forgotten or never even kind of picked up. So I guess, again, this is about the awareness that we aren't alone. We're in the midst of bacteria and viruses and parasites and God knows what. So it's just a matter of being conscious of that and then I guess ensuring that as a process of your detoxification protocol, you also take that into consideration.
Yeah, because I think it's not tested for routinely. Like, you have to ask to be tested for it because it's just not something that's part of the standard protocol in Western medicine. And the thing is, we are exposed to parasites. Like, I'm sure you've seen Instagram reels of people showing their salmon from Whole Foods with a parasite.
Yes, I have. Put me off from salmon for a long time.
Yes, yeah. I've actually found one before in a piece of cod, and it was not good. It's very weird to see it. So we're getting it through our food. If you're traveling, I also got a parasite a second time when I was traveling in India. I had gone many times before and I was like, fine. I was like, yeah, like I went with no stomach issues. And then like the last time I had, I think it was, I had some radishes, which I shouldn't have had, like raw radishes. And then I think we're just washed in the regular water. And yeah,
that was it.
And I got Giardia. That was not fun.
Oh no.
Yeah, so again, had to like, I tried some cocktail of things to finally get rid of it, but yeah, they're not fun. But the thing is, like, sometimes you will have very outward like my symptoms were like, they were very clear, but you know, you could have just disturbances in your gut and it may not be like as evident, exactly. And so I do think stool testing is an amazing thing to just see the makeup of your gut microbiome, what's going on in there.
Because that will tell you.
Yeah, so again, there's like different tests you can do, you know, and different parasite tests you can do as well. But I think, yeah, if you have any sort of gut symptoms, then I would definitely.
I guess doing a stool test to check your gut microbiome, should that be something that people do, I don't know, annually or whenever they feel like there's any sort of...
Yeah, I would say if you have skin issues, if you have gut issues, if you have mood issues, I would definitely do.
Mood issues.
Yeah, mood issues. Yeah, for sure. I would definitely do a stool, like a comprehensive gut health test. Like there's something called GI Map or GI 360 could be like a good start. You'd have to go to like a functional medicine doctor or naturopath to do these kinds of tests. But it could definitely be a good starting point and really give you like a good direction to in terms of what changes to make to your diet and lifestyle.
Amazing. I want to ask you, obviously, congratulations.
Thank you.
Very pregnant. About to have a baby. So my question to you is, how you've been changing your diet, I guess, in the process of being pregnant, and how are you planning to feed your child?
Yeah. So, I mean, luckily, my diet has pretty much stayed the same in terms of like the things that I'm eating. I was eating very healthy beforehand, and as a result of that, like keeping my blood sugar stable, I haven't had crazy cravings for, you know, ice cream at 3 o'clock in the morning or anything like that. So luckily I've been able to kind of keep up the healthy eating habits. Lots of vegetables, lots of protein. I'm definitely eating even more protein now that I'm pregnant and in the 3rd trimester. And then afterwards, a lot of, like, something I think women don't realize is if you're breastfeeding, you need, you know, even more nutrients and even more calories than before. So really making sure you're eating enough. And I feel like that can be hard sometimes, but yeah, so making sure you're eating enough, you're eating your vegetables, your protein, your healthy fat, all that stuff. And I plan to breastfeed, like that's the plan for as long as I can.
So you don't have to be plant-based as long as things are quality, it's fine.
Yeah, I would say it's better not to be, because you know, first of all, you really need a lot of protein during pregnancy, even like your skin stretching. So, for example, I've talked about this a couple of times, like on Instagram with stretch marks, right? Because that's something women are really scared of. And so my hypothesis is like, if we're getting enough protein, getting enough collagen, we're giving our skin what it needs to stretch and grow, that could help to prevent stretch marks. So that has been my experience. I've been having lots of bone broth, lots of collagen, lots of protein, and no stretch marks so far, so that's good.
Amazing.
I'm sure there's a genetic component as well, and I'm also putting creams on and things, but I do think probably the most important thing is making sure you're supplying your skin with the building blocks to stretch and grow and then, you know, go back. So and I think animal protein, it's going to always be a complete protein. So it's going to have the amino acids that we need. Sometimes with a plant-based diet, you have to be very, very careful and very, very particular to make sure you're getting all the amino acids that you need. And so I would say high quality animal proteins like wild seafood, grass-fed meat, pasture-raised chicken, that kind of stuff can definitely play a very big and good part of a healthy diet in general, and especially during pregnancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what can the kids eat, and what's the optimal diet for them to ensure, you know, their brain function, they're growing in the optimal way? So breastfeeding, I guess, is...
Breastfeeding is the best. Breastfeeding is the best. Well, it depends who you ask. So I think the kind of like general recommendation is at least 3 to 6 months, like bare minimum. But you could feed your kid up to 2 years. Sometimes I think people go longer, but I think World Health Organization says 1 year. Don't quote me on that, but I actually just had a prenatal appointment, and they had this little diagram on the wall, and it was like formula versus breast milk. So formula is going to have like protein, fat, carbohydrates, and then breast milk has this whole list. It has protein, fat, carbohydrates, but it has all these other things in it, and it's actually quite fascinating. So what we know now is that when a baby latches to their mother, they like the saliva actually helps tell your body like what they need. And so every time you feed your baby, it's not the same formula that they're getting. They're getting the specific nutrients and the specific things that they need, different antibodies. Like the human body is absolutely incredible. So so I think breastfeeding is the best way to, give your baby everything it needs. But that is why it's so important that you as the mother are taking in enough nutrients and calories to be able to provide for your baby.
Noted. You mentioned something during our conversation before about natural birth. So can you speak on your, decisions on how you decided what you were going to do and what made you decide on that?
Yeah. So I used to be terrified of birth, like absolutely terrified of getting pregnant and giving birth.
I think a lot of women can resonate.
Yeah. I know so many friends that are like literally petrified. I was petrified. There's actually a word for when you are so scared of like giving birth. I forget what the word is, but I was like, I was that. I have that condition. And what changed it for me was there's this incredible book called Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, which was written by a midwife in the US. So she's, had her heyday in like the 60s and 70s in the US, somewhere in Tennessee, and would do all these like home births and natural births. And basically she first, they're all positive birth stories. And I don't know about you, but like when's the last time you heard a positive birth story?
Good point.
Everybody wants to tell you their horror stories and their traumatic births and, what went wrong and all this stuff, right? And it's even when we watch the movies, right? Like the woman, it looks like an exorcism, right? Like it always looks horrible, right? It's never like
pleasant experience.
It's not like, oh, I want to do that,
True.
It's like, I definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So, we're getting all this messaging that birth is a scary, horrific thing.
That's another way to sabotage the birth rate. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I'm listening.
It is crazy when you like start to like think of the big picture. But so anyway, I was terrified of getting pregnant, giving birth. Read this book. It was all these positive birth stories. These women who like enjoyed their birth process, or there was discomforts and things, but they were able to handle it, and her like the rate of what do you call it, like not interference, basically like there was no, like women were able to give birth naturally without epidurals and without any assistance basically, and they had a very, very low rate of having to transfer to C-section. It was like less than 2% or something, which now it's like 30 to 40, sometimes 50% depending on the hospital. Anyway, I read all these positive birth stories and I learned how physiological birth happens. And so when you allow birth to unfold naturally, your body is basically making the drugs to keep you going throughout it, right? The oxytocin, right? And when you're making it in your body, it's crossing the blood-brain barrier, so you're getting the benefits, right? You're getting the pain relief.
You're getting medicated by yourself.
You're getting medicated by yourself. And then when you actually give birth, it's like you're the highest high you've ever been on in your life. So
you protect the baby. Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Right. And then it's also the hormones so that you bond with the baby. And so I was just like, wow, like understanding how it all works, understanding how like even the pushing thing. So like one thing which I find mind blowing, because I only learned this like maybe a year or so ago. There's something called the fetal ejection reflex. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay. Whenever we think of like giving birth, like what do you think of? Like you think of pushing, right? The doctor's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, push, or like hold your breath and then push, right? and the woman's really struggling, right? Like that's what I see from the movies. And your body will actually auto eject the baby out of your body.
When it's time?
When it's time to go, when you're fully dilated, and it's not 10 centimeters, by the way. 10 centimeters is most of the way there. But if you let it, wait like an hour or so, the body, this fetal ejection reflex kind of like kicks in, and your uterus will actually, really push the baby out. You might have to help a little bit, but sometimes like the baby will just come out on its own. And, less likely of tearing, less likely of complications, and it's really fascinating. I know.
Well, when did you say you're doing 2 weeks? I'll check it.
I will let you know how
please.
it goes.
Guys.
No, I know I have a lot of pressure.
No pressure. Only relaxation.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's really, really fascinating. But it makes sense. Like we're perfect machines. So everything was thought of. Yeah. Amazing. What about water birth?
Water is great pain relief. So it's really great pain relief. It's very relaxing.
Gravity and
well, I think it's first of all, it's, because sometimes like you'll have, cramps or like back pain and things like that. The water helps to kind of alleviate some of that. And it definitely makes things softer down there. And also just the upright position. So when you're upright, your tailbone and your hips have more space to like kind of open. So the baby has more space to go out. So again, you're less likely to tear, versus if you're on your back, your tailbone is actually like it's stuck, right? So the baby actually has less space to go out and kind of has to go a little bit uphill to get out. So you're more likely to tear versus if you're upright. And it's harder. Well, it's easier. There's a whole history of it, but it's obviously easier for the doctor to see what's going on if you're this way. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's clear what I think. That should not be the priority, but
yeah.
Very, very, very interesting.
You could really go down the rabbit hole with all that stuff.
Okay, well, thank you for taking us into the right parts of the rabbit hole, and certainly enough for people to have a think and look up more if they're interested. So I want to touch upon your personal journey as well. So before you decided to pursue, let's say, this holistic wellness path, you did something else. So tell me a little bit more about that switch.
Yeah, so I was initially working in finance, and I got there, first job out of college. It was a great job, and I thought I would love it, and I thought I was going to be rich and make all this money. And then I got there, and like 3 or 4 months later, and I was like, this is boring. And I also felt like useless in the scheme of life. I'm just doing Excel spreadsheets all day, and I felt like I wasn't really making a difference in the world. And for me, I had already had that sort of transformation of this food as medicine, and understanding how important food was for our health. And that was like sort of my side hobby. And I was like, I don't know, life is short. I should try to pursue something, try to do something bigger. And that's when I decided to kind of go back to school. I studied cooking, studied nutrition, eventually opened a private practice in New York, and the rest is history.
I love that. What do you think is your purpose in life?
My purpose in life is to help people listen to their body and respect and understand their body, and to use food as medicine and lifestyle as medicine to achieve their health.
Beautiful. When did you have that realization, or rather, when did you coin it? When was that clear for you?
I mean, probably around that time, like a long time ago, so maybe like 2013 or something like that. Like I feel like that's when I got really I realized, nobody's teaching us this. Like nobody's teaching us how important food is for our health, for our skin, and I want to be that person. So that's when I was like, okay, this is my mission. I'm going to teach people how to improve their health by improving their eating and lifestyle habits.
I ask this because I always wonder, how is the experience pre and post you having a purpose and having a defined purpose in your life?
Oh, I mean, it's so amazing when you have a purpose, right? Because you wake up every morning and you get to work, you know what you're gonna do. There was definitely a period where I wasn't sure. Like I worked in finance, and it was like I was kind of like on the fence, and I think I mentioned this to you. Basically, we were only allowed to have a 10-minute lunch break, and you were supposed to eat at your desk. So I remember when I first when I first started, I was like, oh, my first day, like maybe my boss will take me to lunch or something like that. She's like, okay, you can go to your desk now and just sit and eat your lunch and be back in 10 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, this sucks. And so at some point I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my legally allowed 30-minute lunch break, and I'm going to go downstairs. This is America, right? I'm sure Europe, you're like,
wow,
can't understand this. But anyway, so I went downstairs to this little cafe, and I was eating my lunch, just sitting at my table eating my lunch by myself. And there was a man next to me, and we just started talking. He was an older man. He owned like 2 floors in the building, had some big financial firm, whatever. And long story short, he's like, not everybody has to go into finance, or like basically saying that, life is very short, like find something a bit more fulfilling if this is not fulfilling for you. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And so eventually I quit, not knowing what I was going to do next. I just knew that this wasn't the path for me. And so it took a little time. Like I did some freelance work and, part-time stuff. And while I was like trying to figure out, I guess I didn't think that I was going to make food and nutrition my career initially. I just thought it was something I was just so personally passionate about. But eventually I was like, you know what? I want to study this more. I really want to help people. And then that's when I kind of started on that path. And once I did the schooling and I, was even more invested in it, I was like, okay, this is it. And then
this is it, guys.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, and I love these stories. Because for me, everything changed in my life when I found the purpose. Before, I literally was like a lost puppy, and I was just like in this big world, and I was just feeling not inadequate. Maybe wouldn't be the word, but I felt like a stranger in my own skin because I was living someone else's life because I hadn't found mine. So all of that changed when I found my purpose. That's why I always ask this question. I'm always very fascinated and curious about how other people's journeys were. And some people haven't, by the way, and that's totally fine as well, because it's a lifelong journey. But also, you need to even be aware of this thing called purpose, and that it exists, and that you can have one.
Yeah.
So all of this and all of this podcast is also for that purpose. To just, even if a person listens, is like, I never thought about my purpose. What could it be? That's a start.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because everything changed for me in terms of my quality of life, and in terms of me feeling like the owner and the protagonist of my own story, rather than just living in some strange world in a body doing some stuff that people told me to do.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Like I thought, like being in New York, right, everyone goes into finance, and I thought this was the path that I needed to go on. And once I realized it wasn't, and once I realized what I actually wanted to do, then every day is not like work. Like I'm sure you don't feel like you're working. Right, exactly. And so it becomes fun. And there are obviously hard parts and things you don't want to do that you have to do, and taxes and this and that, boring stuff. But you get through it, and it's, you're just so much more fulfilled, and it makes life just so much better and happier.
Amen. Completely agree. So I guess my last question would be, if you could share some 3 valuable, important to you life lessons, what would you share?
1, listen to your body. Your body will never let you down. And also make friends with your body. Because I think a lot of women, especially, we're kind of at war with our body, or we're taught to be at war, especially when we're younger, but for many of us it lasts. You have to make peace with yourself, make peace with what you see in the mirror. And once you do that and you realize that your body is like your friend, she's not trying to go against you. So even when you have whatever problems or ailments you have, it's not your body going against you, it's your body speaking to you. So take the time to listen, and take the time to experiment and figure out what your body needs. And you give her that and she will give you the body and the health and everything that you want. That's definitely number one. Number two, I would say, is kind of on what you just talked about, is like follow your heart, because it won't lead you wrong. And I think a lot of people get stuck in this, you know, I went to college, now I have to get this job, now I have to stay here a certain amount of time, and now I have to climb the corporate ladder. And you don't actually have to do that. And if you, it's not, I'm not saying go quit your job tomorrow and like do, you know, just do nothing, but figure out what calls to you. Like experiment, take classes, you know, listen to podcasts, buy books, watch documentaries, whatever you need to do to figure out what lights you up and what gets you interested and what, you know, you could spend hours talking about, and, you know, just keep going in that direction. And I think that will, you know, never lead you in the wrong place. And then lastly, take your probiotics. Make sure you're nourishing your gut. Right. You know, make sure you're taking care of your gut, which means taking care of your mental health, which means eating healthy, you know, do some maybe relaxation, spend time in nature, whatever you have to do to make sure that your gut is happy.
I love that. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you for having me.
Hello friends, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe and share it with someone. I would love to hear your feedback and suggestions as to what guests you would like to see on the show next. See you next week.